name's Clark Dennis. I'm the welding teacher at New York Harbor School. We work together with the Billion Oyster Project across the island, building these reef structures that we use to, we call them gabions. They will eventually become reef structures. They'll be filled with oyster shells, and then young oysters will attach themselves to this and then grow out, become reef structures that will be used as habitat for various different animals, but also to protect the shoreline along wherever they may be placed. And eventually these will grow out, the steel will all disintegrate over time, and then the oysters will take over, and marine life is there. It'll become like one big reef. And they're being placed right now in areas that are prone to wave destruction during storm surges and things like that. There's a project in Staten Island. I believe there's a project still going on in the Bronx area, in Soundview. But we don't just weld these structures. This is sort of an entry-level thing that we do with students, but students also learning about other industries, construction, shipbuilding and repair, different industries where welding is needed. So we do career exploration. We just took students yesterday to a school uptown, and they do field trips, and they learn the basics of welding here in the 3 years they're here.
Hello, my name is Darius Graham. I'm at New York State Harbor School, Governor's Island. We're on the Governor's Island ferry, and so what we do here is we weld and teach welding manufacturing. Welding. So what I'm doing here right now is I'm outside doing fire watch. It's my job to make sure nothing catches fire at the torch or welding area.
Hi, my name is Frank Schwal, and I teach 9th grade global history here at the Harbor School. I've been here for 6 years, I think now, and it's a really special place. I love the fact that it's really one of the most diverse schools in all of New York City. We have kids from all backgrounds. They come from all 5 boroughs, and that combination makes it a really neat place for kids to learn. Of course, I love the water, as does almost everybody here. And so it's great for us to be able to explore and work on the water. I run the fishing club, and so every Wednesday after school, we have about 20 kids that walk down to the other side of the island, and we fish off of Yankee Pier, and we catch all kinds of fish. So we catch striped bass and blackfish, and we've even caught some dogfish, which are a type of shark. And every fall, when we catch those fish, we put some of them in the tank we have inside the entryway. And so those are fish that our students have caught, and then when summer rolls around, we release the fish back out into the harbor. So we love showing people that the water that surrounds us is alive with living things. So that's a lot of fun. And then in my class, which is global history, we really like to connect the past to the present. So we are always looking for ways for kids to realize that stuff that happened 2,000, 3,000 years ago still has an influence today. For instance, on this beautiful basketball court, we're surrounded by the influence of Roman arches. And so we like to point those kinds of things out to the kids so that they can become culturally literate and appreciate their surroundings. And then the last thing I like to say is, how could you not love going to school on this beautiful island on a day like today? So it's really, really special.
Does it say hot? Thank you. Yeah, that was impressive.
Thank you.
Welcome to Billion Oyster Project's Water Quality Lab. This is where we do sampling and processing for the Community Water Quality Testing Program, which has been up and running for more than 10 years and has collected over 10,000 samples from New York City's harbor and New Jersey, testing for Enterococcus, which is a fecal indicator bacteria. It really kind of gives us an idea of how much combined sewage overflow is impacting New York City's harbor. So through the CWQT Water Quality Testing Program, we produce a weekly newsletter during recreational boating season for 20 weeks of the year to let boaters, swimmers, other water users know exactly what the conditions are in their waterways. In New York City, one of the things that really stops people from interacting with New York City's harbor is combined sewage overflow. So combined sewage basically means that we have one pipe underground, so when it rains, all that rainfall that runs off onto the street goes into the same pipe underground as, when you flush your toilet, that sewage waste, it's all in one pipe. When you get a lot of rainfall, it overloads that pipe, and all that combined sewage, both raw sewage from your home and untreated stormwater from the roads, that gets put out into New York City's harbor. Some numbers say around 20 billion gallons a year of raw sewage and stormwater go into New York City's harbor annually. So here at our water quality lab, we test for Enterococcus, which is a fecal indicator bacteria that gives you an idea of how much sewage is in the water. So we collect samples, we mix them with a reagent, incubate them for 24 hours, and then we have results. The way that we track how much Enterococcus is in a sample is we put it under blacklight and count how many of the wells glow. So when you see this many wells glowing, you know you're gonna have a really bad water quality sample. That means there's a lot of Enterococcus and fecal bacteria in the sample, which means it wouldn't be safe for people to swim or really, risk consuming the water.
I'm the Director of Community Engagement.
And I'm Cody Herman, I'm the Community Science Technician.
And we're with the Billion Oyster Project, whose mission is to restore 1 billion live oysters to New York Harbor through public education initiatives. So in the Community Engagement Department, we work with public, school groups, community groups throughout New York City and get them involved in hands-on science through 4 programs. So we have our volunteer program, our community science program, which incorporates our water quality, wild oysters, and oyster research stations. Our field stations program, where students and the community can get their hands wet, their feet wet, and work with our big oyster structures. And our public outreach program, where we have our exhibit space on Governor's Island. So why oysters? Because oysters are engineers. They are keystone species to our harbor, and they help filter the water. They provide great homes for marine life, and they help in a big enough way when there's a big reef to break up the wave energy. So those are 3 ways that oysters are important, and we're trying to work with the community and bring back that species to our harbor. I mean, this was once the oyster capital of the world, so let's try to make that happen again. So we're just pulling up some water to pour over the cage. So here's one of our oyster research stations. As you can see, it's pretty mucky, but it has some life on it.
Yeah, a lot of that muck is really different species.
Oh, we have a fish! We have a fish!
A skillet fish.
So skillet fish, and they usually tunicates on like a sea squirt. Oh, there's some small anemones right here.
Isopods, amphipods. On the lid of the cage, we can see a lot of sea squirts, which are these guys that squirt.
Kids love those.
We love a good sea squirt.
As long as you don't press it too hard.
So these are all mussels. These are pretty big.
Yeah, so oysters make great habitat for other critters. Some sponges,
tunicates.
And here are our oysters. So we have some hitchhikers. You can see some mussels in between here. So we have the base shell here. We collect oyster shells from restaurant partners throughout New York City. Once we take them to our curing facility on Governor's Island, they set for about a year or so and cure, make sure all of the matter is off of them. And then we will take them to our hatchery and set new oysters, new baby oysters. The larvae will swim around for 2 weeks. They're free floating, and then they will attach themselves to the foundation shell, and they go through a metamorphosis and start growing their own shell. So here we have about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 live oysters. You can tell they're alive because the shells are closed. There's some weight to it. There's no evidence of any type of holes or oyster drills, predators that have drilled holes into the oysters. You can actually see there's new growth. So like your fingernail, you can see the new growth of the oyster shell at the top here. So when we measure oysters, we use calipers. As I said, we work with school groups, community groups around the city. We want to measure the length of the oyster from the very bottom all the way to the top of the shell. And we want to measure that in millimeters. So Cody, can you tell me how many millimeters is that oyster?
So this oyster is 66 millimeters.
So we do that for every live oyster. And what the students and community science do is they collect that data and they will send it to us so we're able to know how our oysters are doing in this particular cage in this particular area of the harbor. Yes, so one adult oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water in a day. So imagine what a billion can do. It can clean the volume of the harbor every 3 days.